I see all these people who are the biggest couch potatoes, and the doctor said you have to exercise. And especially when I was working one-on-one for years as a physical therapist. And I mean, right now I work with larger communities and group programs, but when I was seeing people who really never exercised, and once they incorporated it, oh my gosh, you become a lifelong exerciser because, they're carrying their groceries, they can put their luggage up, they can do so much. It's empowering. There's nothing more empowering than being strong and capable. And that's possible at any age.
So today we are very fortunate that we're joined by Margie Bissinger. You guys, Margie is a physical therapist. She's an integrative health coach. She's also an author. She has got a great podcast called Happy Bones, Happy Life, and she is a happiness trainer. Margie, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so glad to be here.
I think this is a topic that a lot of us think about, maybe that we get to not worry about until later in our lives. I mean, in our community, we talk a lot about osteopenia, osteoporosis, bone health, but it really hit me to study kind of more of the metabolism of the bone when I fractured my foot 2 years ago. And I thought, okay, how can I hyperfeed and hypernourish the bone for healing? And I started looking and I started researching, and a good friend of mine kind of connected me to some of your work. And so I'm so happy that you get to be on here. Everybody says, what did you do? What did I do? I had my foot taped and did a 14 miler in Yosemite. That's what I did. But, but I worked really hard on healing that. So Margie, I want to ask you a couple things. Like, first and foremost, how important is nutrition in bone health? We know that it's kind of the building block and the structure, and there's hormones associated, but how important is nutrition if we're thinking about bone health in our future?
It's really important at every age. And you made such a good point, because a lot of people think, oh, this is an older person's thing. Right. I don't need to worry about this until I'm older. And it's just the opposite. We develop 85 to 90% of our bone by the age of 18 in women and 20 in men. And our peak bone is before 30. So it's really at every stage, it matters. And the nutrition is the building blocks of our bones. So, if people don't, and that's one of the root causes of people aren't getting, people who've been on diets or had anorexia or eating disorders are at such high risk, because all along they haven't been getting the nutrients that they need for feeding our bones. So it's absolutely essential at every age, not just, okay, now you have osteoporosis, now you have to worry about getting the building blocks of bone. It's really starts when you're born, at every single stage.
I love that you said that, because we talk about, pediatric nutrition, and in our nutrition programs, I always say it's something that you're going to be proud to feed your kindergartner before you send them off to school, right?
I love it.
Yeah, but I didn't even think about that. I know that back from anatomy and physiology class now, but I'm glad that you brought that to the forefront. So men and women build bone, peak bone around 30s, right? But really we create kind of the scaffolding, is that right? Or the structure of our
bone by 18 women and 20 in men. Yeah. So it matters so much what we're doing in those years.
So if individuals weren't maybe on a healthy diet when they were kids, like for me, it's too late to go back and redo that. Is it mean that we need to double down now at this point in our life before we get osteopenic or osteoporotic?
It's never too early and it's never too late. So whenever we can, to nourish our bones, overdoing and getting more of something, like, a lot of people think, calcium, and yes, calcium is important, but more is not better. So it's not as though we're going to, okay, let's go crazy now because we didn't get that when we're younger. So no, a healthy diet, for example, like your diet is very bone healthy, with all the good vegetables, all the nutrients involved. So I think when you're eating that way, that's going to be very healthy for our bones. But nutrition is so important. And the other thing, a lot of people say, oh, I'm eating well, I'm taking supplements, I'm doing all those things, but they have major digestive issues. So it's not just eating, it's also being able to absorb and digest.
Right. It's not just what you eat, it's what you can absorb and what you can metabolize.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So do you guys focus a lot on gut health, making a positive impact on bone health?
Absolutely. And that's, I think a lot of times when people are diagnosed, even, with osteopenia or osteoporosis, a lot of times the doctors will just say, okay, go on calcium, vitamin D, and exercise. And a lot of times, and sometimes medications, but
Right.
they don't really go into more depth. And the key is if you have a diet, and to me, the gut is really one of the first places to start, because if there's an issue there and you're not absorbing your nutrients or you're having some type of inflammation, that's going to show in bone breakdown. So it's absolutely essential. And they've done studies on that too. The composition
Oh,
of the
yeah.
biome is going to affect your bones. So yes, that's a huge part of just a healthy bones program. And I think, that's one of the places to start when people ask, where should I start? Start at your gut, because it affects so many other pieces of the puzzle.
And I love that. And that's where we focus on biodiversity of foods, right? To excite the gut biome. We focus on the fiber. We focus on pre and probiotics, making sure that we're causing that scratch factor and that vitality there. Well, you said something about like when a person gets diagnosed with osteopenia, osteoporosis, and they maybe say, okay, let's supplement with calcium, vitamin D, do some exercise, but they're not getting to the root cause of why we're losing bone density.
Hey guys, it's Haylie again. Right about now, you might have questions that pertain to you and only to you. Let's continue the conversation. Go to HayliePomroy.com/member and get a free 30-day trial of my membership community. You're going to love this place. Post your questions, ask your questions, grab some downloads, and let's get you the help you deserve.
I want to ask you about, my team always laughs at me for this one. My grandma always said, if you don't feed yourself, you'll take it from your bones, right? Our bones are a reservoir for mineral reserves. There's not many in our body, but why do why do some people get osteoporotic or osteopenia and other people don't?
So there's many, many, many different reasons. And basically, throughout life, we gain our peak bone at 30. And then with women, menopause is a huge time when we lose bone. And we can lose a significant amount of bone, perimenopause, right before, during menopause, and after. And, a lot of that has to do with hormones, and estrogen is a protective effect on our bones. So I am a big believer in working with at that age. There was a period of time where people were really against bioidentical hormones, but now it's really changed, and it really is safe, and you can totally protect your bone. So it's something that you may want to work with your doctor, in terms of that. So hormones are one big reason that many women will all of a sudden start losing bone. And again, it depends where you start. It's sort of like a bank account where you build bone when you're younger, build bone, and then you do lose some. So it depends where you're at also in terms of how much you lose. But so hormones is one reason.
Can in those hormones piece, I know we talked about estrogen, but can stress hormones impact?
Yes,
Okay.
cortisol. And that's such a big point, is that, a lot of people come to me and they're like, oh my gosh, tell me exactly what exercise I should do, exactly what I should eat. But they are stressed out, but they don't realize the stress itself has a negative effect on our bones. So what they found is cortisol, the stress hormone, actually reduces the osteoclast, which is increases, the osteoclast, which are the cells that break down bone, and reduces the activity of the osteoblasts, the cells that build bone.
Right.
And they've done studies on that, and they've shown that there's reduced bone density. There's a correlation, with stress and cortisol and bone density. People who have more social stress have lower bone density, and people who aren't happy with their life, happiness as well, have increased, reduction in bone density. So it all goes together. And this cortisol piece, to me, is foundational. Like, there's just not one program that I teach that I don't incorporate stress reduction and happiness, because I've seen over my career, even as a physical therapist, that once people start adapting this and adding that to their program, everything changes. But as you said, the cortisol is very important, and we can't ignore that. We really need to deal with that in terms of for bone health. And the other thing is, when you do, your life just becomes so much more magical. And, it's just a much better way to live when you can go with the flow instead of being, a wave comes and tosses you over. So
exactly. So is that correlation, that kind of science correlation what inspired you to also be a happiness coach? Because, you know, I think sometimes we think we can just muscle through our emotions, right? That it doesn't have a physical impact on our body. And I said, well, it's your physical body that's unhappy though, or it's your physical body that's stressed. It's not some etherical thing that's happening outside of our bodies, right? It's happening, and we see it, the manifestation, in our hair and our skin, dark circles in our eyes or whatever. But was that how you made that correlation? Because I personally, I absolutely love that you incorporate that into the therapy aspect of it. But what made you correlate that?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I actually was teaching happiness before I even got into osteoporosis.
Really?
Real
Okay.
early in my early 20s, I'm working as a physical therapist, and I had just gone through a bad situation in my life, not a good situation. And I'm working in Chicago as a physical therapist with chronic pain patients. So I'm seeing people with TMJ, back pain, neck pain, and they were all absolutely miserable and angry and not happy.
Right.
They would say to me, Margie, you're so happy. What's your secret? And I thought if they only knew what I'd gone through, they would never say that. And then it hit me that, you know what? Despite my circumstances, I actually was happy. And that happiness was something deep inside, an inside job. It wasn't dependent on my circumstances. And I thought, well, what did I do? What did I do to help me get through this that I
Right.
actually could still be happy? So I started teaching that to my patients who were miserable. I figured, what the heck? And miracles started happening. Neck pain, back pain got better so much faster than traditional physical therapy. And I started seeing people just getting that joy back in their life. And it was so miraculous that this is over 40 years ago. This is
It's awesome.
and so ever since then, I've just made that happiness piece part of the work I do. Then I had training. Then I actually studied positive psychology. I worked with Marcy Shimoff, an amazing happiness coach, to actually learn how to
Oh
teach
yeah. Oh yeah.
happiness. And so I've been doing that for a very long time. I now have a whole program on it. And to me, it's so life-changing, for not just that you feel happier, but health improves. It's really amazing.
We
Yeah.
always try to come up with these little tidbits. I call it like thin it in a minute, right? Like chew your food while you sing happy birthday to me, so that
Yeah.
you masticate, you get all your micronutrients out of your food. Are there some little mindful minute long or things that our community can kind of learn about today?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the key things is, so as what we focus on grows. And so, so
Ah,
often we wake up in
I'm
the
gonna write
morning.
that down.
We wake up in the morning and we start focusing on what's not working and my to-do list. And so I think what happens when you wake up in the morning, you want to really they've done several studies, but I think mindset's so important. You want to sort of ask yourself some questions like, what's the best thing that could happen today? Or what good is here I cannot possibly see? And just try to be a detective for the good. Because oftentimes there's so much good in our lives and we don't focus on that.
Right.
We're all wired for negativity. We're wired because to live, we had to be more concerned if there were a tiger lurking in the past than if someone gave us a compliment. So start looking for the good, but we can rewire that. And then when something good happens, and they've done research on this, you want to savor it for at least 20 seconds.
Ooh.
So,
Okay.
something good happens if someone says, this is such a great show, and says, so yeah, I really work hard on it. You want to savor it. Or you see a sunset, like take it in, absorb it, just feel it. And so be a detective for the good. When something good happens, take it in. And not that we're going to push out the bad. There's many techniques to you can't just throw it in the closet when you get the negative thoughts, but you can also counteract them. So, all right, I got this negative thought. Instead of absorbing it and letting it totally take you over, I like to question it. There's whole type of routine we can do. But the other thing you can do is counteract it with 3 true but positive things. Like, okay, yes, that, but you know what? I'm eating well, I'm doing whatever it is.
That's awesome. Those are great tips. And we always, in our community, I always say, I'm on a joy hunt. I'm on a joy hunt, right? I love being a detective for that. But I'm going to stick with the savoring it, because so many times, I'm a problem solver in my mind, and I do that every day in my career. And I do that. I'm the head of problem solving for my household. So I, for some reason, I'm hardwired seek out the problem, right? I've been a health detective or whatever you want to call me. But and I'm so fortunate to have beautiful things in my life. But the word savor just like really resonate. I'm going to really try. I'm going to practice today. I'm going to get really good at it. But I'm going to try to savor that because I love and I feel it deeply. But I move on probably too fast to the next problem, the next dragon to slay, for lack of a better way. So that's good. So all you guys listen, let's savor. I love that.
Another thing, savor it,
Yeah.
celebrate. So like you do something good, you could just yay or
Yes,
yeah.
people have told me, I don't know if it's imposter syndrome. I don't know what it is. I have a hard time celebrating personal success. I like when FMD launched and it hit, it couldn't go better than number one on the New York Times bestsellers list. Right.
Wow.
And I was in my hotel room under the covers. They were party and I didn't show up to it. Like I just, it sounds terrible. My community would, I've got great, we get lots of great free therapy in our community. No, but they're like, so celebrating, I'm a big celebrator of success for, the kids' achievements and my girlfriend's achievements and my community's achievements. I need to probably get better at that. And so I'm going to call our community out on that. And let's all try to be accountability partners to each other about celebrating our successes. I've had like a massive health victory, right? That's how I got into this industry, but it's the everyday things that sometimes I needed that. So thank you for coming on to my podcast for me. No, I know that I'm not the only one, that I know that it's always in my community as well. I was very, very, very meaningful for me. I thank you. I want to give our community another gem. And I know that you have a handout that you can give them, which is so generous, but walk me through what exercise looks like for bone health. Is it just heavy weights? Is it tons of cardio? Is it, cycling, spinning? Like, what does that look like for bone health?
I'm so glad you asked that question because people really don't know. Oftentimes the doctor will say, do weight bearing and resistance or, exercise. So a lot of people are doing 20-mile walks. Not that that's a bad thing for your cardio, but what really has been shown to move the needle on bone health. And there's two things. Number one is impact. So jumping. So anyone adding jumping, even as kids, when you're doing hopscotch, when there's all sorts of jumping things.
Would the trampoline, would that work? Like this mini
there was one study. The trampoline isn't as much force as jumping.
Okay.
However, there was one study done by Posh where they had women 45 minutes doing a whole program on the trampoline, and it did show some improvement in bone density. So it's certainly not a bad thing to do. But it's really that ground force because the bones respond to the force placed upon it.
Got it.
So depending where you're at, if you have severe osteoporosis, I would definitely talk to your physical therapist, your doctor. You don't just start doing massive jumping. You can progress, do like on your toes and your heels. You gradually do things. But for younger people listening, they've done studies on this. I mean, they had a study where they had people hop on one foot and then the control group was the other foot, right? And that hip that they hopped on increased the bone density in the other. So it really matters.
We're going to do a skipping challenge. We'll be happy and we'll have impact.
Doing jumping, doing some jumps, that comfortable and in good form. I mean, so in terms of, the two things though that have really been shown is the impact and the resistance and strength training.
Okay.
It's not easy. It's not like, I'll just do 2 pounds. Because I said the bones respond to the force placed upon it. So there was a study done. It was called the Livermore study, and they did it in Australia. And they took people who had osteoporosis, and they had them do serious weight training, but supervised, which is important, under a physical therapist or exercise physiologists who are trained. And they were doing overhead presses and deadlifts, with serious weight.
Right.
Gained significant improvement in bone density, and the geometry of the hip actually changed so that and significant reduction in falls. So now there's a program in Australia, and they're starting to pop up in this country. It's called Onero. I actually have been doing it myself, and it's amazing. Women, in their 60s, 70s are lifting, 60, 70, are doing like deadlifts, 60, 70 pounds. It's amazing. I mean, I can't know what happened to me from this, but regardless, the point is you want to start somewhere. So it's resistance exercise at least twice a week. And if not 3 times a week, I mean, 3 times a week is great, but at least minimum, they've showed that if you do it twice a week, and it doesn't have to be long, it just has to be that you're gradually improving. So in terms of repetitions, now in this study, you start out with more and you go to smaller, but in this study, they did 5 sets of 5 repetitions with these intense weights, and you gradually had to learn how to stabilize. You have to learn the right form. So I recommend people work with either a physical therapist or someone who really understands strength and conditioning.
Yeah, I want to bring up that point because one of the things, like you said, you walk out of your doctor's office, you get maybe even given a prescription, right, for bone density, and they tell you to go exercise, but they're not scripting for physical therapy. And many people's insurance covers physical therapy or many people. Yeah. And so I always encourage our community, like anytime you have a medical diagnosis of anything, especially anything structurally, ask for a physical therapy prescription. Because if you are having lower back pain, if you are having GI distress, if you're having bloating after eating, if you're having neck pain, if you're having, for sure, any osteoporosis or osteopenia, a physical therapist can guide you through staying, so I was in a massive car accident and I was in physical therapy for 3.5 years post, several surgeries and things. My physical therapist is why I don't have pain. I mean, I would have healed, but I would have healed structurally incorrectly. And it would have caused lifelong, pain and inflammation or disharmony in my gait or whatever, or I could ruin my shoes. I mean, there's so many things that can trickle down from that. But I love that you brought that up. So if you get a diagnosis, if they are thinking that you are starting to lose bone density, get into physical therapy. Don't just run out and exercise and ask for it, you guys. Fill out your request for cares. Ask for it. I think that's a really important thing to drive home.
Here's a couple of things. I couldn't agree with you more because, a lot of people are like, oh, that worked for my friend, or they'll just enroll in some, and there's a lot of, that's how I actually started in osteoporosis. I was seeing people and they were all doing exercises that increased their risk of fractures. We could go over that. But the point is, yes, see a physical therapist. In the United States, it's covered. And sure, almost all insurances cover it. They can make sure your form is right. And sometimes, and people just think they have to live with, oh yeah, I've had the shoulder for 20 years. You don't.
No.
There's help for these things. And, and people just don't realize that it's important. So yeah, a lot of times the doctor won't say that. They'll just say, go out and exercise. But
you're the captain of your team, you guys. You have to decide, and always, that's when we do these health wish lists, dream big for your health. And it's never too late. I love what you just said. It's never too late to start physical therapy, even if it's a 10, 20-year-old injury. Yeah. Because you can recondition remember, you guys, you're regenerating all your tissue all the time anyway. So you might as well regenerate it in a healthy way for sure.
I want to give one more tip on the exercise.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, not every physical therapist is trained in osteoporosis. So you can go to the Bone Health and Osteoporosis Foundation or Google. It's called Bone Fit. So there's a whole program out of Canada, and there are people anyone who's gone through the Bone Fit training, which I'm Bone Fit certified, they have a really good understanding. So you can find a practitioner in Bone Fit. You can just Google Bone Fit practitioners or go to the American Bone Health and Osteoporosis Foundation, and you can find a Bone Fit trainer. Or the other thing you can do is you can go to choosept.com, and in the 2 specialties where you're most likely to find is geriatrics or women's health. You just write that in. But otherwise, see who your insurance covers. Get the list. And then call and say, do you have someone at your facility who has an expertise or who works with osteoporosis? Because you don't want to go a physical therapist who's a sports medicine and they've never.
Right.
It's a little different when you're dealing with bones, and there's certain things you want to avoid. So I think it's really important to get a therapist who has an expertise. And there's plenty of people that do.
So where would people go to get your handout on exercise?
Oh, okay. Okay. So can I give that to you in the show notes?
Please. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, otherwise they could go, but this exact one that I want to give them is, I'll give you,
okay.
I'm trying to think if I have it easy, tinyurl.com.
That's okay. I'll put it in the show notes. I'll get it to you guys. I just want to make sure we all get it.
If it's not this, I'm pretty sure it's tinyurl.com/osteoporosis exercises. I'm pretty sure. I'm almost positive that's it.
Hey guys, it's Haylie Pomroy, your host. Right about now, you're probably struggling to achieve the health that you deserve, and you're just not sure what you need to do in order to get it. So what I've done is I've created a special link for you that will give you the nutrition and supplement programs that I use in my private practice to achieve amazing results for my clients and my community. Go to HayliePomroy.com/podcast. Plus, when you use that link, you'll get a 20% discount just because I love you. Again, that's HayliePomroy.com/podcast. Now, back to the episode.
I need tips on how people can get started.
Mhm.
And then I need tips for our community on how people can stay motivated to continue.
Well, in terms of getting started, there's a couple things though that go into, I didn't really finish. So the resistance, I just want to finish. So the resistance
sure.
is critical. So twice a week, resist. And whatever it is, if you've never exercised, just using your body weight is going to be enough. For each person, it's not as though, oh, you must lift 10 pounds. It's not that. It's each person starts where they're at. So if you've never done exercise, lifting your leg is going to be more than your body's accustomed to. So for example, when I bend my elbow and I'm doing that against resistance, and it can be a weight, it could be resistance bands, it could be machines at the health club, whatever it is. But when the muscle's contracting, it's pulling on the bone and say, hey, we need more bone here. So that's going to depend on wherever you're at. So I've seen people who are like using 2 pounds for years. Initially it might be enough to cause, but after a while, your body gets used to it.
You need to make progress.
Yeah. So the thing is, they found anywhere between, as I said, this Onero program, with this program that's really been so effective, is 5 sets of 5 repetitions. So it's at a high weight that you're tired, you can't really do more than 7. But most people start anywhere between like 8 and 10, even 8 and 12 repetitions. So it's not doing 50 repetitions.
Right.
Doing sets where, you're somewhat tired after 8 to 10.
I want to person my name towards the end.
But you gradually get to that. You can
Yes.
even start at 15 repetitions. You gradually get to that. So the resistance you want to do the weight bearing. And for some people, it might just be, for those who can, adding the jumping and adding the higher impact is great. But if not, even like going up on your toes and down on your heels, there are things you can do. But walking still is a weight bearing exercise, dancing, you have to have fun. So I think, so you want weight bearing, you want resistance. I'm very big into posture exercises because you cannot exercise appropriately if you don't, first of all, if you have to core strength, but if you're in a slouch rounded posture and you try to lift your arm, you're going to cause impingement.
So give me some examples of posture exercise.
Yeah, and that's in the sheet. So I go
Perfect.
through
it. Are there things like, would Pilates be considered a posture exercise or yoga?
Yeah, yes. In the sheet, I did a program 2 weeks to better posture where I showed an exercise where you're bringing your shoulders back and down, your chin in, a back bend, things, and how to sit, how to visualize lengthening. So it's all on that sheet that you can get. So I have all the videos of me doing all those extra, even text neck. Children now, when they're on their phone and texting, the curve in the neck has changed.
Yes. You're making me, I don't know if you guys are noticing. I'm like, yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Posture has to be natural. It shouldn't be tight. It should just be comfortable and natural. So I think posture is one of the first places to start. And so there's really easy exercises on that sheet. The other thing, a lot of people are like, well, I have all this problem. I can't do strength training, but everybody could do balance. And balance, people fall. The reason people are the key thing, it's not that we want our bones so strong. So we want our bones strong so we don't fracture. Fractures are what is the problem.
Right.
That's what we really want to prevent in life. But a big thing is falls. And a big reason people fall is because they don't have good balance as they age. They don't have, if we don't use it, we lose it. So one of the best things you can do is Tai Chi or Qigong.
I love that.
Fantastic. I show, I think 7. I show all these different balance exercises. I show 2 Tai Chi ones also in the sheet as well, but even standing on one leg, there's things we can do and so that your balance can stay good throughout life. You can get better, but a lot of people just don't even think about it. So balance is important. The strength training twice a week. Posture exercises, I say daily. I love cardiovascular just because we want to enjoy our life. We want to keep our heart and lungs well. And, it just lets us continue to be active. So, I believe in cardiovascular. And let's see, did I miss anything? I think those are the main things, that twice a week. But you really, so tricks is that you just start somewhere. It's sort of like a car sitting on the driveway. It's not going anywhere. If you just do something, you even just put your sneakers on, step one, every day. Really just do that.
Is it more important that you do frequency or long durations during a day? Like, is it more important that I can dedicate an hour, hour and a half, or is it more important that I do 20 minutes 5 times a week?
No. As I said, for the strength training, the things that really move the needle are the strength training and impact. On this Onero program that people did so well from Australia, that program was 30 minutes twice a week. That was it.
Wow. That's great.
So I think it's not the extent.
Okay.
I mean, they have found, though, that there's a correlation. People who are more active have increased bone density, but at least...
Well, they also have less stress hormones, right? I mean, it reduces stress too.
People, start with something and and I'm a big believer in you just go step by step, and you have to schedule it in and make it non-negotiable. Because it's that important, and your life will change dramatically. That's the thing. Once I see all these people who are the biggest couch potatoes, and the doctor said you have to exercise. And especially when I was working one-on-one for years as a physical therapist. And I mean, right now I work with larger communities and group programs. But, when I was seeing people who really never exercised, and once they incorporated it, oh my gosh, you become a lifelong exerciser, because they're carrying their groceries, they can put their luggage up, they can do so much. It's empowering. There's nothing more empowering than being strong and capable. And that's possible at any age. I see this. I have 85-year-olds helping me move chairs. I mean, it's amazing. So make it a non-negotiable, even twice a week. Do what works in your life. Now, if you're so busy, then do some exercises in between things. You can do certain exercises in between, and you can learn, you don't
get up and jump rope between your Zoom meetings, make them 50 minutes instead of an hour long back to back, and do something. Move your body.
If you're at work, bring a resistance band and do certain things. So so there's all sorts of ways that you can do it. As I said, posture is so important. And the one thing for anybody that does have osteoporosis, you want to avoid the rounding, forward bending, like touching your toes. Things like, I love Pilates and yoga. They're fantastic, but you do need to make some modifications if you have osteoporosis. You don't want to do any of those rounding poses, because they have shown puts more force on the front of the vertebrae and the spine where fractures occur.
Interesting. So you mentioned, that leads me right to what you mentioned. I made myself a note. There are certain exercises that you feel are conducive to injury.
Yes. So the ones that let's see if I have my spine here. I do.
See if I have my spine. I'm sitting up more taller.
Yeah. No, I have this right in my desk. Okay. So for the people who are watching, I know some people just listen, but anyway, if we look at this spine here, this is the front and this is the back, where you feel the bumps on your back. So ideally, like the top right here, this is nice and square, and and inside it's thick, it doesn't have holes. But if we look at this, like with osteoporosis, now this is one that has osteoporosis. You see there's bigger holes in the bone, so it's not as compact.
Like porous.
It's no longer, it's porous, exactly. Osteoporosis, porous bones. But now we see that it's wedge shaped. And where the fractures occur, the front of the spine, not back here. So if you took the spine and bent it forward, you can imagine that we're going to put more force on an area already weakened. So what you want to do, you can bend, instead of bending from the waist, you do squats, you bend from the hips and knees, and you maintain, we all have a nice inward curve in our low back. You maintain that. So it's just some modifications necessary for Pilates and for yoga and, all those rounding positions. And that was the sad thing. I used to see people who the doctor said exercise, and they're touching their toes, and you'll go to senior classes and you'll see that. And it's, people, I know I oversee all the osteoporosis initiatives. I'm part of a group in New Jersey. And we had years ago, we sent out a flyer to all exercise instructors that we had their information for, explaining, because we were seeing too many injuries, do not do this with your patients with osteoporosis. So those are the main things. And then also, you don't want, if you have osteoporosis, and I also say osteopenia as well, you don't want to do extremes of motion. So you don't want to do like the absolute extreme of rotation and side bending, and side bending or rotation, and especially with weights. So especially if you're at like a yoga class and the teacher's going to do overpressure, you don't want that.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Those are the most important things. And look, if you bend down one time, it's not that anything bad's going to happen, but you just want to get in the habit. It's also healthier for your discs as well, to learn to do your activities bending from the hips and knees and not the waist.
That's great. That's great. Well, we run community challenges, and one of the things that we'd really like to develop out this next year is we encourage exercise. In fact, we think it's really critical in healing the metabolism. And we talk about cardio and strength and weight training.
Yeah.
But sometime we'd love it if you'd come maybe teach us a little class so that we could get some great knowledge. Okay, good. I would love that. I think, when you're incorporating, we talk about food as medicine, movement is medicine too, right? And it's an incredibly valuable piece of medicine. And you want to make sure that it's applied in a way that's going to promote health and healing, and not that it's going to have crazy side effects, right? That's
And that's why you don't want to run out. You can read these articles and see, this Onera program that I love so much. It's not safe to do it yourself. You really need to learn how to stabilize. Core is so important. There's preparation. So don't just go out and say, oh, I'm going to do this, because then you get hurt.
Yeah.
And do things safely in a step-by-step with the physical therapist. If you can, that's amazing. It makes such a big difference.
That's great. Well, thank you for putting together a handout for us. I'll make sure in the show notes that everybody gets that. It's going to be a great adjunct and asset to our community in healing the metabolism. Margie, I cannot tell you, thank you so much for being here. It's really cool to think about the fact that, we build our health young, you guys, feed your kids, feed your grandkids, get them on those healthy foods so they can create bone density. And I think there should be, when I think about education in schools, I think we should be educating our children about, I always tell them, eat this so you can run faster, jump higher, but have strong bones, right? And I don't know that oftentimes we think that we're having dinner for our future self.
That's such a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Or we're exercising for our future self.
When you do this handout, like the posture things, teach your kids.
Teach your kids.
It's so sad. I see these children and I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, what are they going to grow up to be with this posture? And so, just share the exercises with the kids. Yeah.
We appreciate it. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. This is an issue that, like I always say, I think of my grandma, when you're stressed, when your body's nutrient depleted, when you're not taking care of yourself, when you're not being physical enough, you're going to take it from your bones. And that grandma that taught me that was very physically active, well into her 90s, and didn't slow down until she had a fracture. She had great bones. She fell, and in her 90s, she was standing on the back of a bathtub, hanging up garments to dry, and flipped and had a fracture. It's one of these crazy things because she worked, fabulous bone density, but she healed from it because she had good bone density, right? And went on to be very physical well into her 90s. So she always taught me, feed your future self, and you want to stay healthy and be healthy and have good structure. So Margie, thank you so much for being here. Everybody's going to love this, and you gave us great tips, and we really look forward to that handout. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It's been so much fun.
Great.